Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good day. So, good morning here in Colorado. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast or Central Standard Time. I hope everybody's well. So, welcome to our August LinkedIn Live with Steve White. First of all, let me just say thank you to all of you that follow me on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't, go check out my website, stevewhitespeaks.com. You'll find out all the necessary information, recent appearances, and hopefully you'll find it's a place where you can go and learn. And finally, for those that have purchased my book, Uncompromising, which was released in March, thank you. And most recently, we just announced we're going to be launching a book guide or study guide or discussion guide that goes with the book. So if you're reading the book with others or you're part of a book club, even if you just want to read it yourself, it's a great little discussion guide that allows you to make notes, take as much out of the book as possible, because this book was not meant as a book that you read and put it on the shelf. My hope is it's a book that you can go back to on a regular basis. So thank you to everybody for all of your support. And again, welcome to August LinkedIn Live with Steve White. And the purpose of these sessions is, one, just to step back and reflect. Often, most of you have heard me talk about one of my keys to success is taking time each and every day. For me, it works in the morning, is to step back, reflect on the previous day, the upcoming week, so I can ensure that I'm living my purpose and I'm focused on the right things. Number two is to share my insights. After a lot of years of working in corporate America, I think I have a unique perspective, and my goal is to share that with as many people as possible. And we try to identify subjects that are relevant. When people write us notes or they look at our post on social media, we try to extract the necessary information of what's hot, what's on folks' mind, what do they want to hear about. So we build our subjects around what's important to you so we can make sure that these sessions are relevant. So today's subject is ensure your legacy stays, holds, carries on through smart, what I call smart succession planning. And this, as you know, this is a 3-part series. Last month, we talked about this whole notion of getting to the C-suite or senior level jobs, or you really could apply this to any position that you're holding today. One is, how do you get there? Number two, once you get there, how do you stay there? And number three, how do you create a legacy that once you've left after 2 years, 5 years, and in my case, it was 11 years as West Division president, how do you ensure that your impact is still relevant and still part of the organizations going forward? That is a sign of a leader that not only operated for today, but operates for tomorrow as well. And that's how you create a legacy. Not to say the new leader can't put his or her own stamp, but if you've done a really good job, that leader will see in a smart way some of the things that you've done well, and they'll want to maintain that. So let's go on. So we talked about in the context of getting to the C-suite or senior level position, how do you get there? How do you stay there? That's what we focused on during the July LinkedIn Live. And today we want to talk about how do you create that legacy? Once you get there, once you stay in the job a period of time, how do you ensure that as you move on to your next assignment or your next position, that your impact is not forgotten? You've actually created a legacy that carries on long after you go. So hopefully that makes sense. And there are 3 things I want to talk to you about today relative to steps to success. Number 1 is create a development culture. How do you make your organization a learning organization? How do you constantly invest in your leaders so they develop and grow? And then how do you identify programs that will help bring the next generation of leaders on? In my role as West Division president, we created a program called L2L, Linked to Leadership, where we identify frontline men and women with a strong focus on diversity, gender diversity, as well as ethnic diversity. How do we identify those leaders that we can invest in so they could become leaders of tomorrow. So over my 11 years there, we graduated almost 2,200 frontline employees. 65% of those men and women are now in leadership positions, helping the company grow on. Now, you might say, well, how does that work to create a legacy? Well, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So think about this. If you created a culture of constant learning and development, a culture of constant development, whoever comes after you, they're going to see that as great value and they're going to keep it. But more importantly, the men and women that you help develop over this period of time, they won't forget that. And that gift will keep on carrying on because they've now developed that mindset of development and focusing on moving people from point A to point B. And that will live on long after you're gone. So this whole notion of getting to the C-suite, staying there, and now we're talking about how do you create a legacy. The first is create a culture of development, because long after you go, those men and women that have been trained, they've been developed, and they're going to do it with their people to ensure that everybody's growing and developing. And that will go back to your impact on them. So developing a culture of excellence and talent development is very, very critical. So hopefully that makes sense. Number two, part of your job, day one when you get in that job, is how do you start thinking about succession planning? So when you're gone, the company, they don't have to look any further than right there in your organization as they think about your replacement. And what I love to do is I try to identify individuals early and often, because sometimes people fall off the list based on their own growth and development. But you should always have a regular list of men and women that you've identified in this culture of talent development that you believe can extend to the next level of position, next level. And so that should be more than a handful of folks. And part of creating a legacy is those folks have bought into your culture, they bought into your approach and how you're thinking about the business. You know that they're going to take some of those principles and carry forward. And what better way to maintain your legacy than to develop homegrown talent? So identify early and often who those men and women are that you're thinking about, that you believe have capability. Identify them. Let your bosses know who those folks are, and then set up even an acceleration of development program for them. So when that opportunity does come, whether it's replacing you or replacing somebody else in another part of the organization, you've got them on that track. You've accelerated their development, because if the talent is there, the smarts are there, the work ethic is there, and now you put a little accelerator on the development program, that's going to give you a lot of different options relative to future leaders in your company, not just replacing you, but future leaders within the company. And then the third is, and this is really important, so after you've created a culture of development, that is the gift that keeps on going. It will maintain your legacy and impact. Number two, once you've identified those key leaders, helping them grow and develop so they are growing in your organization, maybe even one day replace you in that organization, is a critical piece of not only helping the company, but developing a legacy and smart succession planning for the company. And then the third is, and this is really important, with your boss, regularly discuss what is the criteria for the leader of the future. We all know the business world is changing dramatically. What kind of leader is your boss looking for? And so have that criteria very clear in your mind, so as you develop the culture around talent, and identify the men and women that might be able to replace you, you've got a clear idea of the success criteria. And the reason that's so important, you should then make that a part of your overall talent approach, so everybody should get an idea of what success looks like in this organization and how do you grow your career, and make sure that's at the foundation of creating your learning organization. And then number two, it gives you a better criteria to identify the leaders that will be needed for tomorrow based on that criteria, and that will help you develop and identify those leaders that will compete for some of those jobs. So getting there, we talked about. Staying there, we talked about doing the July LinkedIn. Today, we're talking about what leaders do when they move on. ensure your legacy stays whole, carries on through smart succession planning. And the way you do that, create a development culture. Number two, identify early and often individuals, men and women that you believe can compete for some of the big jobs going down the road. And then clearly partner with your boss to identify the success criteria for future leaders. Because making a difference is not just about getting there and staying there. That's about you. But we all know legacies are created based on the number of men and women we impact. And that's why the third piece, once you move on, what happens? If everything you did when you were there and is no longer there, who really knows you were there? And so part of this is ensuring that you create a legacy for the future. So hopefully that makes sense. So these 3 steps, as we summarize, 3 steps to ascending to the C-suite. Number 1 is getting there. And the reason that's so important, it gives you a North Star. It gives you a way to develop those good habits. So getting there is just as much fun as staying there, because you have to clearly identify your North Star, and then that helps you build those good habits that will assist you once you get there and you stay there. And the reason staying there is so important, you have to be in a position or a job long enough to have the kind of impact that we're talking about. And then number 3, creating that legacy, because as a business leader, while you have to focus short term on immediate results, you're always thinking long term as you make business decisions, particularly around talent. So as you ascend to the C-suite or those senior level positions or whatever position you're in, my hope is that these steps of ascending to senior level positions will resonate with you. So thank you for joining us today for August LinkedIn Live with Steve White. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for purchasing the book. And thank you for following me on social media. I hope you are finding these conversations, my posts and others beneficial to you. So thank you. Have a good rest of your summer. And I will see you on September 7th for our September LinkedIn Live. Have a great day.